Hello everyone. Welcome to the video series on Scratch. In the previous video, we saw how to install and launch the Scratch editor, the various features of the Scratch editor. In this video, we will learn how to build a new project and the basic requirements for building a project. Whenever you build a new project in Scratch, you have to keep in mind to add the following components. The first is adding sprites to your project. You can add multiple sprites to your project and you can also code them individually. That is, individual instructions can be given to each sprite in your project. Next is the costumes of a sprite. Today we will see how to manipulate the costumes of a sprite, how you can change the look of a sprite and make them animated. Third, we will also add sounds to our project so you can make your project look more lively. And fourth, to make our project look beautiful, we will be adding backdrops from the backdrops library. So let's get started. Let's open our Scratch editor. So when you launch the Scratch editor, it will always open this way. So let's first see how you can add a sprite to your project. The sprite 1 is the default sprite when you open your Scratch editor. You can also delete this sprite, but for now you can also delete this sprite by clicking on the bin button. Now let's add a sprite to our project by clicking on the choose a sprite icon. You can see Sprite provides variety of sprites in its sprites library, which are categorized as all, which will show all the sprites of every category. Or if you want to see sprites for a specific category, then you can click on these options. Like animal will give you animal sprites, people will contain these sprites, and so on. Now let's add a sprite to our category, to our project. You can do so by just typing here in the search bar if you know the name of your sprite. Now, as I mentioned, you can change the look of this sprite using the costumes to make it look animated. So, to do this, you have to select the sprite and go to the costumes tab. You can see the cat sprite has two costumes. You can select this costume that you want your sprite to use in the project. You can duplicate a costume by clicking on the duplicate tab option. You can also change the look of a sprite using the tools available in the costumes tab. For example, if you want to change the color of a sprite, then you can select the fill tool and select a color of your choice, and you can just place your mouse over the cursor to change the color of the sprite. You can also add text to your sprite. You can undo any changes by using the undo tab. You can also delete a costume for a sprite. And lastly, you can create your own new sprite by just clicking on the choose a costume icon and selecting the paint option. You can create a shape or you can create a text sprite. Now, let's see how we can add a backdrop to our project. To do this, first click on the choose a backdrop icon and you can select any backdrop you want. To see all the backdrops that you have added for your project, click on the stage below the stage area and you can see this middle tab has turned to backdrops. Click on the backdrops tab and you can see all the backdrops added to your project. To add a new backdrop, you can also do it from here. So you can add multiple backdrops to your project. Now let's see some basic blocks that are used when you're creating your Scratch projects. First is the motion block. The motion block helps you to move your sprite on the stage. For example, the move 10 steps block will help you to move your sprite by 10 steps forward. You can also change the value of this 10 to some other value, say 150. And I'll click on this block. So you can see my sprite is moving. Next, the turn right by 15 degrees block will tilt your sprite in the right direction. Let's see. If I change this value from 15 to say 45, then it will tilt your sprite by that many degrees. Similarly, the turn left by 15 degrees 15 degrees block works in the same way, but it tilts your sprite in the opposite or left direction. Next, we come to the go to random position block. The go to random position will place your sprite on anywhere on the stage. So if I click this block, then it moves from here to any random position on the stage. Let's see it once again. Next, we have the glide 1 seconds to random position. The glide 1 seconds to random position block will make your sprite glide to a random position for the specified number of seconds. If I change this seconds value to say 3 seconds, then the sprite will move very slowly to the random position for 3 seconds. The difference between the go to random position and the glide 1 second to random position is that the go to random position just pops the sprite to the new location on the stage, whereas the glide 1 seconds to random position block will make your sprite glide to the new position. Let's move on to the looks menu. The looks menu, the first block in the looks menu is the say hello for 2 seconds block. The say hello for 2 seconds block will make your sprite hello for 2 seconds. The say hello block will make your sprite say hello, but this will be for indefinite time. The think who block will also make your sprite say or think who for some time. You can see the difference in the bubbles. It's a thought bubble. The think for 2 seconds will make your sprite say something for 2 seconds. Next, we come to the switch costume to costume 1 block. As I mentioned earlier, a sprite has costumes. To switch the costume of a sprite to a particular costume, you use the switch costume to block by just selecting the costume you want You can see the costume of the sprite is changed. Let me show you explain this block with another sprite which has multiple costumes. Now we'll just see the costumes of the balloon sprite in the costumes tab. The balloon sprite has 3 costumes. Let's take the switched costume to block again. Initially, the costume for the balloon sprite is balloon 1C. If you change it to balloon 1A and click on this block, you can see the color of the balloon has changed. That is, it has switched to this costume. If I select costume C, then the costume has changed again. Now, what if I want to make the costume of the sprite change continuously without having to specify again? That is, what if I want to go through all the costumes of a sprite? Then I'll use the next costume block. Every time I click this block, you can see the costume is changing. Next, we have the change color effect to 25 block. Using this block, you can change the color of your sprite by some degrees. There are various options available in the drop down. Next, we have the go to front layer block. Suppose if both of these sprites are overlapping and I want the cat sprite to be in the forefront, in the front of balloon. So I will use this block. But for that, I have to use this block in the cat sprite. You can see the cat has come forward and the balloon has gone backward. Now let's move on to the sound menu. You can add new sounds to your project by going to the Sounds tab, and you can see the default sound here is meow. Now, if you want to add new sounds to your project, you need to click on the Choose a Sound icon. You can see the Scratch provides multiple sounds in its sound library. If you hover over any of these buttons, then you can get a preview of the sound. Again, you have categories for these sounds. Now, let's say I want my sprite to beatbox. I'll select beatbox 1 and then I'll go to the code tab and I'll use the sound in my block, in my project. Now, if the play sound beatbox 1 until done block will play the beatbox sound first and then execute the other blocks in the project. Then we have the start sound block. The start sound will play the sound along with executing or running the other blocks in the project. Then the third block is the stop all sounds block. The stop all sounds will stop all the sounds running for the project. Coming to the Events tab. The Events tab contains blocks which are triggered when a certain event happens. For example, what is an event? When you click on the green flag button, it is an event. So for that we have a when green flag clicked block. When you press a key on your keyboard, such as the space bar, then The space bar key when space key pressed event occurs. If I change here to change space to up arrow, then whenever I press the up arrow key, the event will be triggered and the when code below the when up arrow key pressed will be run. Now, if you want to trigger code when you click on a sprite, then we use the when this sprite clicked block. So, now we have learned quite a lot about the Scratch blocks. So, what do you say? Let's try out our newfound Scratch skills. Let's code a simple animation using the concepts we learned. For that, we'll create a new project by going to the File menu and clicking on the New option. We'll click OK. Now you can see you have got a blank Scratch editor screen. So let's create a simple animation for the cat sprite, for the sprite 1 sprite. Let's add a backdrop to our project called as the blue sky. When the green flag is clicked, that is when I click on the green flag, this event is triggered. I want my animation to start. So for that, from the events menu, I will select the when green flag clicked block. Now I want my sprite to say some message. So I will go to the looks menu and select the say hello for 2 seconds. Next, I also want to move my sprite by some steps after he conveys the message. So I'll select the move 10 steps block. Let's change the value of 10 to 350. Or 350 would be too much, so let's change it to 150. Now, after moving some steps, I want my sprite to make us wait some seconds and then make a sound. So I'll go to the control menu and select the wait 1 second block. I could also reduce the wait to say 0.5 seconds to make the animation move quicker. Now I want to make my sprite do some sounds. So I'll select the start sound block. Green flag clicked event occurs. I want my sprite to start the animation. So for that, we'll go to the events menu and select the when green flag clicked block. Then I want my sprite to say something. So I'll use the say hello for 2 seconds block. For now, I'll keep the message as hello. Then I want my sprite to make a sound. So I'll go to the sounds menu and pick the start sound block. Then after this, I want my sprite to move some steps. So I'll use the move 10 steps block. Let's change the value of 10 to 150, from 10 to 150. So, and then after a wait of some seconds, I want the sprite to do these 3 steps again. That is, after a wait of some second, I want the cat sprite to make a sound again and move some steps again. So to do that, go to the sound menu and pick the start sound block. Let's make the cat sprite do a different sound this time. So going to the sounds tab, click on choose a sound icon and we'll select the chirp sound. Now we have added that sound to our project. So here in the start sound meow block, we'll just click on this drop down and select the chirp sound. Now let's move the sprite by some steps. And this time, after doing these 2 steps, I want to tilt the sprite in the right direction. So I'll select the turn right by 15 degrees. Let's change this value from 15 to say 45. Next, after doing these steps, I want my sprite to again wait for some time and then repeat these steps. So I will select the wait 1 second block, and again I will add a sound block, or rather than doing this manually, you can also duplicate these blocks by clicking on the duplicate option and then pasting it here. Let's remove this wait 1 second block. Now, after doing this set of steps, I want my sprite to change its costume. So I will go to the looks menu and select the next costume block. Let's run our code. What do you say? Let's position this sprite to the default location first, and then I'll run my code. You can see it said some steps, said a message, then it did a sound, moved some steps, waited for some time, and then again it started following the instructions. Wasn't it a simple but awesome animation? Well, let's see how we can save this project to our computer. For that, click on the File menu and select the Save to your computer option. You can see the Save As dialog box has opened. You can go to any drive and select your project by giving a name to it. My first project. And click on the Save option. So now you have successfully saved your project to the system. Well, time for me to conclude the video. Stay tuned for more such interesting videos in our video series on Scratch and learn coding concepts with me and my friend Mr. Cat.